and function come together. I'm Cristy Murray, Catholic nurse practitioner. And if you're joining us live, say hello in the chat and tell me where you're watching from. I love to see where our community gatherers are from. And if you've ever been told that your labs are normal and you still feel exhausted, which seems to be the common theme nowadays, right? You feel foggy or stuck, and you're exactly in the right place today. So drop in your questions in the chat. This is live, and I'll try to get to many questions as we can. My guest today is Dr. Amie Hornaman, known as the Thyroid Fixer. So if you have thyroid issues and you've been getting the runaround, this show is for you. She's a functional medicine clinician who founded a national telehealth practice focused on thyroid and hormone care. And she hosts the Thyroid Fixer podcast. She came to this work the way a lot of best clinicians do, through her own experience being misdiagnosed and deciding to go find real answers. She's the author of the Thyroid Fix, and she spent years helping women who've been dismissed, and finally they're getting seen. So this guest has been on my radar for a while. I've been following her for a while, and I'm really glad that she's here. So Dr. Amie, welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness, Cristy, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so before we dive in, I'd love for you to introduce yourself in your own words and tell us what brought you to this work.
So, well, as you said, I am the Thyroid Fixer, and I came to be through my own pain to purpose story. And I think that's what brings a lot of us into this space, is something that we've gone through in the past. So if we rewind about 25, 30 years ago, I was an athlete. I was competing in bodybuilding, fitness, and figure shows. So for those who don't know, it's, it's basically on the feminine side of the bodybuilding world, where you really have to get into lean shape, keep your muscle, low body fat. And it was always a challenge to me. Like, it sounds crazy when I say it out loud. Like, who would want to diet down for 12 weeks and then step on a stage in a bikini? Not many people would volunteer for that, but it was this challenge that I really wanted to see where I could take my body. So I had done plenty of these shows before. This one show I was getting ready for was a national level show. I was working with a coach, and every time I would get on the scale to send my coach the updates, the weekly progress report, the scale was going up. And I mean, it would go up 2 pounds and then 5 pounds and then 10 pounds. And over the course of a couple of months, it hit that 25-pound mark and then some. I stopped getting on the scale after 25 pounds because I became so depressed. All in all, I look back at pictures, and I'm pretty sure that I put on around 40 pounds very, very quickly with no explanation whatsoever. And it really biologically didn't even make sense. When you looked at what I was consuming and caloric intake, the cleanness of the diet, chicken, broccoli, asparagus, I was going to the gym twice a day. I was really taking care of my body and treating it like a temple. And my body was basically rebelling against me. So I did what we all would normally do. I went to my doctor because at the time I knew nothing about functional medicine. I knew nothing about thyroid and hormones. I just did what we all do. So I go in, I say, hey, doc, here's the deal. Here's my diet. It's perfect. Here's my workout regimen. It's perfect. The scale keeps going up, and I don't know why. And whatever tests my PCP ran on me at the time, I don't know to this day. I have an inclination. I have a few thoughts. But he looked at me and said, you're normal. Everything is fine here on these labs. You're normal. So I left that appointment. I thought, well, I don't feel normal. I don't feel fine. So I'm going to do this second opinion thing. So I go to doctor number 2. I get told the same thing. Well, nope, your labs look fine. They're normal. Everything's normal here. Why don't you just eat less and exercise more? I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I just handed you a paper that shows you exactly what I'm consuming, and you're telling me to eat less than that? I'm going to basically starve myself. This is craziness. Mm-hmm. So I kept going, and I went to a total of 6 different doctors who all medically gaslit me. I mean, that's the only word for it. They told me I was normal. I was fine. It's all in my head. Just eat less and exercise more. And they blew me off as if my weight concerns, my fatigue, my hair loss was nothing but a thing, just part of aging in your 20s, which made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Doctor number 7 finally did something that no other doctor had done. She had touched my throat, and she says, swallow. And she's like, I feel a couple nodules on your thyroid. Your thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland located in your neck. A couple nodules on there. I'm looking at your labs here. It looks like you have hypothyroidism. And I'm going to give you this pill. So, oh my gosh, Cristy, I left that office. I was so excited. I was so pumped up. I'm like, oh, I finally have a name for what is going on with me. And I have a pill that's going to fix me. Because before that, like I said, I went into a pretty deep, dark depression. I mean, I was wearing sweatshirts. I was hiding my body. I didn't want to go out. I mean, I had no social life in my 20s because I was just so low at that point, just mentally depressed, physically exhausted, energy was low. My body wasn't mine anymore. I didn't recognize the woman I saw in the mirror. So when I got that pill, I thought, this is it. This is the miracle pill. This is what's going to help me. What she gave me was Synthroid or levothyroxine. I know a lot of your listeners might be listening right now and they're on this very thing. That is T4. And I know we're going to get into the nitty gritty today, but just to kind of give you an overview, T4 is an inactive thyroid hormone. It doesn't do anything in the body unless it converts and becomes the active thyroid hormone T3. So I gave this pill a good 5 months. I didn't lose a pound, not a pound. So I start doctor Googling because that's also what we do. So I start doctor Googling and I find, oh, all this information on these other thyroid hormones like T2 and T3. And oh, wait, it turns out that my doctor could prescribe me some T3. That's the active thyroid hormone. That makes sense to me. Why would we give someone an inactive thyroid hormone and then cross our fingers that it converts? Why not actually give the active thyroid hormone? So I went back to her and I said, here's the research. Why don't we actually use the active thyroid hormone? I mean, it just makes sense. She goes, that's not standard of care. I don't do that. And I know to this day, many, many, many women hear this over and over again. Standard of care means standard of sick care. So because it doesn't fall under the umbrella of keeping people stuck and keeping people sick, you don't do it. I see. Okay, thank you. You're fired. I'm going to now go and find someone who will. And that's what led me into this world of functional medicine. My functional medicine provider, my mentor, saved my life. I always joke he spent 83 more minutes with me than any other doctor because
Not that
it
you're
wasn't
counting.
the 7-minute visit, right? It wasn't the 5 to 7 minute visit that you get now in conventional medicine. He really sat down. He went through all of my labs. He explained to me what all of this meant. He put the pieces of the puzzle together. And ultimately, he put me on the right treatment for my thyroid that turned my life around. I lost the weight. I felt better. It's like this fog lifted off of me. And I knew at that point of time that this is what I was meant to do. And so I changed careers and pursued additional education, studied under him, worked for him for a while. And I knew I wanted to specialize in thyroid and hormones because even though I was young at the time, I was still being tossed around in a major medical system, equivalent to Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, where people go because they feel like they're going to get the best of the best medical care there. And I was still misdiagnosed 6 different times. So I knew that especially women get hit hardest with thyroid and hormones. I knew that women needed better care. And that was my goal from the beginning, even 30 years ago, was to set out and be able to help women. My goal was every single state. I wanted to be able to help women and prescribe them the right thyroid hormone replacement, the right bioidentical hormone replacement in every single state. And that's what I built.
Wow. Way to turn your story into a story of triumph.
Well, thank you.
So thank you for sharing. So before we get into the nitty gritty of everything, aside from your book, let's do some icebreakers. What book are you reading right now?
So I am rereading the book Driven by Dr. Doug Brackman. It really does speak to all the driven type A people. It's not just ladies, people out there too. It helps you understand why, you're just a little bit different from the rest of the crowd and why your brain might act on overdrive at times. It's very interesting.
Wow. So what is the first thing you do in the morning?
First thing I do in the morning is have coffee with my husband. If it's nice out, we'll sit outside, get the morning sunlight, all of that fresh air. And then that's followed by a walk with my dog. So those are my non-negotiables first thing in the morning.
Love that. Get that sunlight, circadian rhythm, wake up your body before you start getting active. So
Mhm.
now, after coffee, what's your favorite food?
Oh, my favorite food. Oh, goodness. Well, my favorite, we'll say cheat food would be Oreos. That's my downfall. Love me some Oreos. But my favorite everyday food that I do, I start off every day with a protein shake. I use my protein powder. I throw in flax seeds. I throw in collagen. I throw in creatine. And I mean, I just love to start the day off with that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I'll keep that in mind. So I'm gonna pick your brain later about the flax, the creatine, and the collagen that you add. So now we're talking about food, right? So funny how it comes up because much of what we talk about starts with metabolism.
Mhm.
And the thyroid is the quiet engine behind it. And so many women in this community are doing everything right. Like you were active, you were watching what you eat, and still feel tired, foggy, and stuck. So today let's talk about why that happens and what labs might be missing. So you came through the thyroid, helping women with thyroid disorders through your own misdiagnosis. And so I know you have mentioned that you've seen many different providers, and good for you as a 20-year-old, you're advocating for yourself. So what have you realized since then? Like, what has that experience taught you about how to manage thyroid nowadays?
Well, it taught me that the unfortunate reality, and I still see it today. It has not improved in 30 years, unfortunately. So the reality is that our conventional medicine system is broken. It just is, and I'm sorry to give you that news if you don't know it already. The conventional medicine system is broken, and especially when it comes to women's health. So we're seeing more and more doctors being dictated to by insurance companies, big
Yes.
big pharma,
Mhm.
big food, big insurance, and their hands are really tied to provide that level of care that they once did. If we rewind the clock 50, 60 years ago, when doctors made house calls, when they actually came in the room and sat with you for 20 and 30 minutes, when they asked you the four most important words that any doctor can ask you, how do you feel? Doctors don't have time to do that anymore. We go back to that 5 to 7 minute visit. That's what insurance companies will pay for. And you and I grew up learning that, well, insurance should pay for it, right? We get our insurance, we pay our premium every month. We
Mhm.
should be able to use this little card and pay our $20 copay and get adequate treatment. And it's just not the case anymore. Um, I
Totally
really
agree.
think that we need a massive shift in women's health, but we also just need to educate the public to almost break out of that insurance-based mindset. Use your insurance for things like broken stuff. I mean, if you break a bone, if you got to be repaired, orthopedic things, all of that. I mean, listen, if you need a cardiologist, you need a cardiologist, right? But when it comes to prevention, when it comes to optimization of, let's say, the endocrine system with thyroid and hormones, you're probably not going to get top level care staying in the insurance based medical system, unfortunately.
It is. I totally agree with you. I mean, like even well-meaning doctors and providers, like you said, their hands are tied because, here's the standard of care and someone else, sees what they're doing, which is actually helping the patient. And yet when they file insurance, like almost their own peers are like, no, what are you doing? Right. Well, I'm trying to get my patient better. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So for the woman who has never thought about her thyroid, what does it explain to us? What does it do day to day, and how does it affect energy, mood, and weight?
So the thyroid is our master gland. So what I always say is from head to toe, it runs the show. So we can literally start at the top of our head and we can go, okay, the thyroid controls our hair growth, hair quality, whether or not you're losing hair or if it's thin and breaking, controls our eyesight, the outer corners of your eyebrows. If you lose that, that's a classic sign of hypothyroidism.
Hmm.
We can see it in our voice, hoarseness, that feeling like something is clogging our throat, like we can't swallow correctly, our heartbeat, our body temperature, our blood pressure, our blood sugar balance, absolutely our metabolism. The number one thing that controls your ability to burn fat or gain weight is your thyroid. Digestion, gut motility is controlled by the thyroid. So a classic hypothyroid symptom is constipation and bloating. Then we can go all the way to our skin, dry skin, cracked elbows, cracked heels, fingernails that always break easily, toenails that rip off. It really does control the entire body. And that's why we need such a bigger spotlight on the thyroid, because it really is the root cause of many other things, such as anxiety and depression, your mood, your brain function. That's related to thyroid functioning or not functioning. A person can easily be put on antidepressants when it's not a depression. It's that you have low thyroid function, that you have T3 receptor sites in your brain that need that thyroid hormone. It's not getting it. The brain isn't getting it. So therefore, anxiety, depression, memory loss, brain fog result. So it really does run your entire body.
Is that connected somehow to progesterone? Because I had heard somewhere, and it can confirm with me if I'm incorrect, that women with low levels of progesterone have a harder time absorbing their thyroid medication because of some receptor issue.
It's not quite that, but it's close. So let me break that down, because that's a great question. So what we see with the tie-in with progesterone is kind of what we're going to be talking about today, Thyropause. So what happens if we look at a typical woman? Some women in their 20s and 30s will experience low progesterone due to PCOS, which is now called PMOS, or they could just have, just declining progesterone at an earlier age. So we lose progesterone first. And by the age of 40, you pretty much, it's time to bring in the progesterone hormone, because you really don't have enough at the age of 40. It's really starting to drop off. And usually testosterone will follow around the same time. So that decline in hormone function, followed by decline in testosterone, erratic estradiol before that falls off a cliff in menopause, that whole process of declining hormone function, which we're all going to experience because no one has yet figured out how to age in reverse, that will trigger thyroid dysfunction. Now, progesterone comes in and it actually helps the body to take that inactive thyroid hormone T4 that we were talking about earlier and convert it into T3. So low progesterone will hinder that thyroid conversion. It doesn't necessarily do anything to the receptor sites on the cell for thyroid hormone. That's independent. And that is that the receptor sites on the cell, it's only for T3. So that's the important point there, is that, like I said in the beginning, I was given T4 medication. There's no receptor sites in our body whatsoever for T4. We only have receptor sites for T3. That's what's going to give us a metabolism, light up our brain, let us go to the bathroom every day. So when progesterone comes in, when progesterone is low, it's going to hinder that T4 to T3 conversion. Yep. And it's also going to kind of basically kick off Thyropause.
That makes, thank you for explaining that. So someone with high T4, low T3, you better start checking progesterone then.
Oh, yeah. You're going to check progesterone. You're going to do a full thyroid panel. I know we're going to talk more about reverse T3 today. All of that, that plays a role.
Wow. So the standard of care, right? So TSH, I'm in the infertility world, and women come to me because I work in women's health, OBGYN. Yep. So women come to me referred because of infertility, and it's like TSH is the only thing that's checked, if that's even checked. Sometimes it's not even. And then I get some women who have irregular bleeding, and then I check their thyroid labs, and then they say it's not your uterus, it's your thyroid. So then here I go referring them to endocrinology, which is quite frustrating. And so speaking of labs, so beyond the standard TSH, what are the other labs that you take?
So TSH is, since that is a brain hormone and it's not a thyroid hormone, we absolutely want to check beyond that. We don't want to stop at the brain. We actually want to look at your thyroid and your thyroid hormones and see what they're doing. So we have to look at free T4. So we want to look at the unbound inactive thyroid hormone. It's not as important, but we just kind of toss it in there to look for the whole pattern and get the full picture. Then we absolutely test free T3. which is testing the unbound active thyroid hormone that you have in your body ready to attach to the receptor site on the cell. We look at reverse T3, which tells us how well you're converting the inactive thyroid hormone to the active thyroid hormone. And it also, reverse T3 acts like a block at the cell. I call it a bouncer, like a bouncer at the club, where you got, this big burly guy outside the club door, arms are crossed, looking at everybody in line, telling the T3 guys that you can't come into the club today. So that's what reverse T3 does. It blocks your cell from accepting that active thyroid hormone. We have to test that. That's one of the most important markers there is. Free T3 and reverse T3, without those two labs, we know nothing about your thyroid. The other little kind of a public service announcement that I'll give, a little tip on reverse T3, is one way to know if you're working with a provider that knows anything about the thyroid. And this is in the functional medicine world too. Please do not assume that just because you're working with a naturopathic doctor, a functional doctor, an alternative, whatever you want to call it, don't assume that you're going to get good thyroid care, because thyroid treatment is a nuanced art, and we see it over and over and over again in our clinic. People coming in after spending thousands of dollars at a functional medicine clinic because they just thought, well, if I go functional medicine, it's at least better than the sick care system. Yeah, it mostly is if you're actually working with someone that knows what they're doing. But here's a way to tell. If you get a thyroid panel and reverse T3 isn't on there, the translation is that provider doesn't know what they're doing with your thyroid. So reverse T3 is honestly one of the most important markers you can get. I can't tell you the amount of people, even my Facebook group, they'll post their labs without reverse T3. I'm like, can't tell you a thing. Don't know. Don't even know. Go back and get reverse T3 done. So we have to look at that. And then there's TPO and TGA antibodies that tests for Hashimoto's. Basically 95% of all hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's, but we want to look at it. We want to see it. I want to know if you have 1,000 antibodies or do you have 50 antibodies. It's data.
Yeah. So reverse T3, and it is frustrating too, because when I order the thyroid lab, some of they're combing through. It's not like when you order a standard panel, not all of the that you just said is not there. So I'm like basically combing through the lab work. Okay, where's the reverse T3? Where is this? And that's part of frustration with the system as well. So
yeah,
what is one thing? So aside from like when women go to their provider and making sure that reverse T3 is being drawn. So what other things that you wish women understood about how thyroid, hormones, metabolism, and aging, and how they all connect?
One of the biggest things that I want all women to understand, outside of head to toe, the thyroid runs the show. So really acknowledging and appreciating the thyroid for what it is as the master gland. We also have to look at it as a longevity gland. So what do I mean by that? Like I said, the big symptoms of hypothyroidism: weight gain, inability to lose weight, incredible fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, depression, constipation, hair loss, hair breaking. Those are all kind of day-to-day noticeable things. They weigh on our mind. We count the hairs that come out of our head in the shower, and we start worrying about going bald. We're getting on the scale every day and it's going up. We forget about the longevity aspect. So what I mean by that is the thyroid is in control of your entire body. So it's also regulating your immune system. Let's take cancer, for instance. And I know right now out on Instagram, and I kind of combat these clickbait posts all the time, a lot of practitioners out there are going, Synthroid causes cancer. And they're using this fear mongering to get you to click on their post and look at their video. I get it. So I come in and I go, here's the thing. Synthroid is not carcinogenic. It's not causing cancer. What this IG influencer is talking about, and what they mean if they took the time to break it down, is that if you are on T4 only, we know that that's not going to optimize you. T4 only will never optimize someone to that beautiful place with their thyroid. So we know that you're always going to stay a little bit hypo if you're on T4 only. What happens if you're on T4 only, in most cases, is that reverse T3 will go up and free T3 will remain low. That's not an optimized state. So therefore, your immune system starts to get a little bit compromised. We all have cancer cells. As we're sitting here right now, in case you didn't know, and this isn't meant to scare you, you have cancer cells. We all do. But our immune systems are always seeking and destroying. And you don't even know it. You don't even know it's happening. They're seeing that the beginning stage of a mutated cell, and it's going out and zapping it, done, out the door. So if our immune system isn't up to par, then our surveillance system is down. And this is where we can see an increased risk of cancer with hypothyroidism. So no, it's not Synthroid causing cancer. It's being on T4-only is lowering your immune system, which puts you at a greater risk for cancer. Heart disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. A recent study came out that showed that low free T3 levels or a non-optimized thyroid puts you at a significantly increased risk of Parkinson's disease. There are T3 receptor sites on the brain, so we have to think dementia and Alzheimer's. So there's that longevity aspect as well, that while we're kind of focused on the aesthetics and the now and how we feel now, which is important, we also have to think about the long-term effect. Many women will be put on antidepressants, statins, sleeping pills, blood pressure medications as Band-Aids yes. for what the real problem is. And the real problem is your thyroid.
Yeah, totally agree. It's a sick care system. It's a Band-Aid system. Like, it's rare that you find someone going up to the root cause of like what's actually causing it. A lot of things I find too is when I check thyroid, I give them, if there's no like glaring abnormality, I normally tell women that, hey, let's recheck it in a month. And then I ask them, how's your lifestyle doing? Are there any like big changes or stress that's happening right now? Because a lot of times stress hormones really like throw the numbers off. So sometimes I do find that when I repeat it in 30 days, when they, made their changes, like the numbers are fine. So if we can talk about, like you mentioned optimized as well, like, do you have like an optimized like number that you want to see for like certain thyroid levels or thyroid labs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I talk about this in the book. I have all of the tests that we just talked about, as well as where the optimal ranges are in the book. And then I go one step further in there and I kind of guide you that if your reverse T3, let's say, is elevated at between 16 and 24, you're going to do this. So I really give some guidelines in there, but in general, if people are listening right now, you don't have a copy of the book, that's okay. I'm going to rattle off where the optimal ranges are. So TSH, we want that less than 2. And by the way, the caveat with this is I'm talking about the basically LabCorp and Quest. So the US major lab systems, you might have a little bit of a different range if you go to, let's say, your hospital or you get your labs drawn at your doctor's office. The ranges might vary a little bit, but that's okay. I'm going to help you with that. So TSH less than 2, that's pretty universal across all labs. So TSH will go up to around a 4.5. Functional medicine, we want it less than 2. But even if it is less than 2, that doesn't mean that you stop there and you go, oh, thyroid's fine. No. It could be a 1 and you could still have thyroid problems. That's why we have to keep going. Free T4, this is where I throw a curveball in, because a lot of, again, IG influencers, they'll post the optimal lab ranges for thyroid and they'll say, oh, free T4, we want it at 1.5. No, we don't. If someone has a 1.5 free T4, their reverse is going to be high. I actually want the inactive thyroid hormone lower. I want it like 0.8 to 1.2. I want it a little bit on the lower end, because when it starts going 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, I'm like, oh, this person's seeing a doctor that only has them on T4 and they just keep increasing the dose. I bet their reverse T3 is going to be high. So I see it every time. Free T3, and I'm going to make it real easy for everyone. Even if you're in a different country, this is going to be super easy for you. Free T3, we want it in the upper quadrant of the standard lab value range. So whatever that range is, next to your free T3 value, I want you to cut it into 4 different quadrants. I want you in that upper 4th, or even sometimes a little bit over. I don't even care if you're flagged a little bit high with your free T3. So upper quadrant of the range. Reverse T3, this is pretty universal as well. Unless you're like in Mexico, has a little bit of a different lab value system for reverse T3, and one other country that I can't recall right now. But you want reverse T3 less than 12. And then TPO and TG antibodies, you want them at 0. And this is what really
Mhm.
enlightens people a lot. And I've had this comment a lot in the last few weeks. People reaching out saying, "Oh my gosh, I read your book, and I'm discovering for the first time that I have Hashimoto's because either their doctors never tested their antibodies,
Yes.
or their antibodies came in, and let's say like a 20 or a 25. Well, TPO on LabCorp has a cutoff of a 34. So if you have 25 Hashimoto antibodies, you technically aren't getting flagged high. And by the way, I don't know who came up with 34. I have no idea who came up with a number 34 for the cutoff for TPO antibodies. But I'm sorry, if you have 25 antibodies, you have 25 antibodies that are going out and attacking your thyroid, and they're not going to make you feel too great. So wait, are we going to wait till you get 35 or more antibodies beating up your thyroid until you're 10 pounds heavier and can't get off your couch, and then we'll diagnose you with Hashimoto's? No, we look at those antibodies and go, oh yeah, you have antibodies. You have Hashimoto's. It might be in the beginning stages, or you might just be doing a darn good job at your lifestyle and keeping gluten out and keeping stress down, but you still have Hashimoto's.
Mm-hmm. And then, so yeah, the conversion issues, right? So Synthroid. So what's the other medication that like you give them?
Well, so in the T4 category, so anyone listening to this, if you're on Synthroid, levothyroxine, Levoxyl, Tirosint, those are all T for unithyroid. Those are all T4 medications.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that inactive thyroid hormone. So there's brand and generic mixed in there. And then we move to the T3 category, and that's your liothyronine is generic, brand is Cytomel. There's really only 2 there. Then we move into the NDT category, natural desiccated thyroid.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be Armour, NP thyroid, Ren thyroid. That's basically a blend of T4 and T3 in like an 80-20 split. So 80% T4 and 20% T3. So what we do, and you'll have to correct me if I'm not answering your question. I think I'm answering it, but just
Yes, you are.
bring me back around. What we do is if someone is on T4, let's say someone comes into our practice, they're on the standard of care, T4 only, they're not feeling their best. We do their labs. We see, oh, look at that. The reverse T3 is a 17 and her free T3 is only a 2.9. So I know what I have to do is I have to take her T4. Let's say she's on 75 micrograms. I'm going to take that T4. I'm going to drop it down. I might bring it down to 50 micrograms. I might bring it down even lower to 25. And then I'm going to add in liothyronine, T3, and we're going to slowly titrate that up so her body can get used to it. By adding in the T3, that's going to bring up the free T3, and it's going to help lower the reverse T3. By pulling down the T4 dose, that's also going to help to lower the reverse T3. When it comes to thyroid medication and T4, more is not better. But that is standard of care. You'll go into your doctor and say, hey, doc, this 88 micrograms of Synthroid ain't doing it for me. Oh, that's okay, Susie. We'll bring up to 112. We'll bring up to 125. We'll bring up to 150. And they just keep pumping that T4 in more and more and more, not realizing that that poor woman is getting worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like, especially everyone's going by labs. So that's the beauty of having compounded medication as well. Do you ever do compounded?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. We'll do compounded. I find that with things like, I don't want to call them the simple cases. We'll call them the non-reactive ladies, the non-sensitive people, non-sensitive patients that we can use. Sometimes brand Synthroid. I like the brand and T4 better. Brand Synthroid and even generic liothyronine is fine. There's not many fillers in the generic T3, ironically. So we can oftentimes use those, and those are covered by insurance, by the way. Send them in to CVS, Walgreens, whatever, they're covered by insurance. For my sensitive patients, maybe we have someone that was celiac, or maybe we have someone, those patients that are just, they're going to react to anything. Like they can't drink a cup of coffee. They can barely take a B vitamin. It jacks them up too much. So if we give them standard T3, they're probably going to get too amped. They're not going to feel good. So that's where I'll compound, sometimes a slow release T3. so we can
Hmm.
get that into their system, or we'll compound a T3 so there's no fillers whatsoever. There's no gluten, especially if they're celiac. So we absolutely do use compounded as well.
Yeah, wonderful. So that's why we need to partner with a lot of pharmacists who, you know, like functional medicine pharmacists as well, who believe that, hey, compounding and like we have to make a lot of these adjustments. It's the, yeah. So there's a whole new, I want to say, side of medicine. So there's hope for the medical world because a lot of people are, wanting to do the right thing for patients and like willing to deviate. I maybe calling it deviate from the standard of care is it's not the best way to say it, but looking to the root cause and looking to see what's available to help the patients get better.
Right.
So now
Right.
let's talk about T2. So that's really not really even heard of. Like, so it's the forgotten thyroid hormone as you termed it. So what does it do?
So T2, I've actually been studying T2 for about 20 years now. So there's over 30 years of research on this forgotten thyroid hormone. The reason why we don't hear about it much is because it's not in a pharmaceutical form. So we know that if Big Pharma was making T2, we'd have many more human studies on it. But the ones that we do have are very, very fascinating. So T2, it is a thyroid hormone that is produced naturally by your thyroid. We see it in trace amounts in the natural desiccated thyroid medication like Armour or NP. However, it's in very, very trace amounts. It's not enough to show the physiological effect that we're seeing in the studies, which is an increased metabolism, decreased inflammation. We see it improving the overall ability to burn fat and the ability to brown white adipose tissue. So a lot of biohackers are jumping into cold plunges, or if you're in Alaska, just go ahead and jump in the water because it's probably always cold,
That's
right?
exactly
Let's
what
just do a
people do.
cold plunge. So they're jumping into cold plunges to activate that white adipose tissue to basically become more metabolically active and burn body fat and lower inflammation. Well, that's what T2 does. It acts like an exercise mimetic in that it only burns body fat. It will not burn your muscle. It helps improve fatty liver disease. It helps improve cholesterol panels. It helps with that T4 to T3 conversion as well. So to me, when I look at all the studies on T2, it's like, this is just a no brainer, but it's
Yeah.
only available in supplemental form. So when I started studying it all these years ago, it was funny. I had a brick and mortar before we could prescribe to all 50 states. I had a brick and mortar, and I would have these patients come in, and some of them were on T4 only. There was nothing I could do. They were in a different state where we couldn't prescribe. So I was like, oh, how am I going to help these people? Okay, so let's use T2. And at the time, it was only in like a bro science formula. So I kid you not, Cristy, the bottle had a gorilla on it
Oh my
with
gosh.
claw marks down the front. And I'm telling these 45-year-old perimenopausal, menopausal women to go buy this supplement. Their husbands are like, what is this exactly sitting on the counter, honey? So I'm like, all right, just trust me. And it worked. It worked. It even overcame T4 only, which we know isn't going to optimize someone.
Hmm.
So I was seeing it work, seeing it work, seeing it work. So 5 years ago, I knew it was time. So I started the Fixer formula line, and I brought in T2 as basically the flagship product. So now we have it in
Wow.
our line under Thyroid Fixer. It's in Metabolism Fixer, which is a drink, and we have it in a T2 cream. So we have capsule, powder,
Mhm.
cream now to deliver T2 into the body. It's
Wow.
pretty phenomenal. Yeah.
I want some of that T2. Can you ever have, is it, can one person ever have too much T2?
Yeah, you can, but it'd be hard you'd really have to take an overdose. So in the human studies where they showed basically an average of 9 pounds lost of body fat in 28 days, average reduction of around 4% body fat reduction. And that was the average, everyone. Don't get upset if you don't lose 9 pounds in a month, right? But it does work over time. What we saw there is they were using between 150 and 300 micrograms. So
Hmm.
what we did with the formula is in Thyroid Fixer, in the new formula coming out, it's 100 micrograms per capsule. So yeah, you could take one, you could take two, you could take three. The T2 cream is a little bit of a lower dose because a lot of people will use the capsule and the cream together. The cream actually has glutathione in it, which is a master antioxidant detoxifier, protects the thyroid. So we'll see that. And some people will combine Metabolism Fixer, which has suppressa that takes the edge off an appetite, kind of acting like a GLP. They'll combine Metabolism Fixer with the cream as well. So people really do stay in that 150 to 300 microgram mark. I haven't really known anyone to go overboard with it.
Wow. It sounds like better, way better than GLPs because it's not eating muscle.
And it's a lot cheaper. That's for sure. Yeah, it's not eating a muscle. It's not slowing down your GI tract. And it's like 1/100th of the price. Right.
Yeah. So like there's no labs for T2?
No, because it's not in pharmaceutical form. As soon as hopefully big pharma doesn't take it away from us, right? But if they ever did, then you would all of a sudden see a lab.
Yes, exactly. Oh, sorry, I lost okay. So talked about T2. So if a woman suspects that her thyroid is being overlooked, what is the grounded next step for her to advocate for herself?
Yeah. So this is where it gets tough, but I'm going to give you all the information I possibly can. Have it written down in the book too. So number one, you have to go in and ask for labs. That's the first step. We talked about the labs on the show. You have to go in and ask for your labs, but here's how I want you to do it. I want you to bullet list your symptoms on one side of the paper. Do not write paragraphs. Do not write your life story. Just bullet list your symptoms. You got to trust me on this. If you write a paragraph, it's going to get dismissed. It won't be read. And then on the other side, you're going to write down all the labs, TSH, free T3, 54, reverse T3, TBO, TG, antibodies, write those down. Then you're going to hand that paper to your doctor. And you're going to say, hey, doc, because of all these symptoms that I'm having right here, I would really like to get a full thyroid panel done so we can look at the health of my thyroid in its entirety. And if you go in knowing what those lab values mean, and you might have to rewatch this, you might have to get the book and read it, whatever it takes, you have that knowledge of what they mean. So if your doctor comes back and says, well, Cristy, reverse T3 is only tested in clinical settings. That's classic for reverse T3 dismissal. It's only tested in clinical settings. You go, well, I understand the reverse T3 would be high if I was in the ICU or the ER, like fighting for my life or with an injury, because that's built into our bodies to protect us. Absolutely. But, however, I want to know what my reverse T3 is because I'm not in the hospital dying. And I want to know if my body thinks that I'm in the hospital dying. So I want to see this because that's going to tell me how well I'm converting my T4 to T3. I mean, you come in armed with that information, you're going to either your doctor is going to be floored and do the labs, or your doctor is going to be embarrassed and they're going to fire you, in which case you don't want to be with that doctor anyways. Yes. And my rule of thumb is if your doctor says no to testing, it's time to get a new doctor because as you know, it's no money out of their pocket to write those labs. It's it's no skin off their back to write a reverse T3 on your lab order. So if they say no to labs, that means they really don't care at looking at the full picture of you as a unique individual to help you as the patient.
Yeah. Or you could be that patient that would help educate that doctor.
Absolutely. We've seen that happen too. I've heard that from my audience, from my followers. They're like, thank you for giving me this information. I actually went to my doctor and my doctor was like curious. And I've had patients buy my book and give it to their doctor. And it's like, oh, my doctor actually read it. And now she's giving me a little bit of T3. I mean, it is possible. It is possible.
Yeah. Wow. I want a lot of copies of your book here in Alaska so I can hand it out to everyone.
To every doctor Yeah. And that's really the only way that we're going to get improved healthcare is finding those open-minded doctors who truly want to help their patients and who want to learn outside of what they learned in medical school or outside of what they learned in nursing school, like whatever it is. You have to go beyond that education of the 2 to 4 year education.
I think, like you said too, unless a person experiences it, right? Because a lot of functional medicine providers, they were like gung-ho about, Western medicine, which is nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with Western medicine. But until you're in it yourself and it's not helping you and you're just being told nothing is wrong with you and here's the standard of care, then that's when a lot of people go look beyond that and say, there's another world outside of this.
Yes, that is so true. That is so true. I mean, It's really that pain to purpose. When a doctor becomes
Mhm.
the patient, it wakes them up a little bit.
Yes. So your book, The Thyroid Fix, is now out.
Mhm.
And so wrote it for, is there any like specific person that you wrote it for, aside like turning your pain into victory? Is there a certain woman, if someone's listening right now, can you talk to her about your book, and then like what, how amazing and how she will feel after she's read it?
Yes, absolutely. So, well, first of all, what I'm going to do is I want to read you, your listeners, the dedication, because that kind of says it all. And then I'm going to get into this a little bit more. So, this really is for every woman who has sat in her car and cried after another doctor said you're fine, to every patient who has trusted me with her story and shown me just how heavy this journey can be, to every woman still searching for answers, even after being dismissed as normal, to every woman who knows something is wrong in her body but can't get anyone to listen. This book is dedicated to you and your strength. It is my promise that you are not forgotten and you are not alone. So I really wrote this for two subsets of women or people. I hate to leave the guys out. I know you get hit with thyroid issues too. It hits ladies more than men.
Hmm.
So it's the subset of people that they are diagnosed. They know they have a thyroid problem. They're not feeling their best. They still have all of the symptoms, just like on the front of the book: fatigue, fogginess, and fat. I mean, and then all of the symptoms that we talked about, the constipation, the brain fog, the anxiety, the depression, the bloating, all of those symptoms are not normal. God didn't make our beautiful bodies to be walking around sick and tired. That's not normal. When you have those symptoms, that is a red flag that something is off in your body, and we
Hmm.
have to listen to it. I always say that those symptoms are gifts. It's a
Yes.
beautiful gift given to you just to wake you up and say, "Hey, something's going on that you need to listen to and you need to look at deeper." So it's for that subset. It's also for the subset of people that have all of the symptoms that we just talked about, and they keep getting told that they're normal and everything is fine. And believe me, after 6 doctors, I could have stopped. I could have stopped
Mhm.
after doctor number 4, after doctor number 5, after doctor number 6. 6 medical professionals in a major medical system told me I was fine. Why wouldn't I believe that? Because I know deep down inside that I wasn't. I knew I listen, you know your body better than anyone. You know your body than any better than any doctor. So when you know, when you get that inclination that something is wrong, you listen to it. And that's the other subset of people that I wrote this for, because we can figure it out. Like I said, I've had readers reach out to me and go, because of your book, I actually figured out that I have a thyroid problem. So that's really who I wrote it for.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for writing this book. Um, so another thing that we talk about on the show is food, and I just realized we didn't talk about food and thyroid. So are there any specific food or let's start with snacks. Like if women, women are busy, they don't have time to like grow their own garden, and so any like specific types of food that women would, if they suspect they have a thyroid disorder, if they've been told that they have thyroid disorder
Mhm.
and they don't want to bump up their medication, or like compounding medication is not available to them, are there any ways that they can address that through diet?
Well, diet alone is not going to fix a thyroid problem. Like, there's no foods that we can say, oh, this is going to support your thyroid or give you more thyroid hormone. However, there are the amino acid tyrosine that I'm not familiar with any foods that it's in, but you can obviously take it in supplemental form or in amino acids. L-tyrosine is basically the building block of thyroid hormone, in addition to iodine. So while I don't necessarily recommend consuming a lot of iodine containing foods because they can
Seaweed.
be, yeah, I mean, listen, I love me some sushi. I'm not going to say no, but I also take supplemental iodine because if I had to eat the equivalent of sushi or seaweed or kelp that would, take, that would equal what I need to take in milligram form of iodine, I mean, I'd be eating like a pound of seaweed every single day. And then you have to, look at, okay, are the heavy metals and all of that.
Yes.
So I prefer just a supplement with iodine. But food wise, we know that if you have any autoimmune condition, but especially Hashimoto's, you have to avoid gluten. And the reason for this is based in science. It's not a fad. That's why I have a chapter in the book that says gluten-free is not a fad, because it's not. There's science behind it. If we look at gluten under a microscope, there's a protein of gluten called gliadin. And when we look at that, it looks ironically very, very similar to the thyroid gland. So now let's back up and let's talk about Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is the autoimmune form of hypothyroidism. We already said it accounts for about 95% of all hypo, low, and slow cases. So when we talk about antibodies, I love using analogies so people can understand. When you have antibodies, you have these little soldiers that they're misprogrammed. They're programmed to think that your thyroid is a bad guy. It's like someone came in and like hacked their computer system and pre-programmed them to like your thyroid is bad. Go and attack it. So these little guys, they think your thyroid is a bad guy. And they, they're kind of like soldiers in a boot camp. They're all talking to each other. So then they see gluten come in and they're nudging. It's like, hey, Bob, the invaders come in. You think we should start a war? Yeah, let's go. So the soldiers see gluten coming in. They think it's the thyroid. They think it's the bad guy. They think it's the enemy. So they go out and they launch an attack. In addition, continuous consumption of gluten can build your army. It can increase your antibodies. So that's why we say you have to be gluten-free, and it's not a fad thing. It's based in science because we want to lower your antibodies, lower the amount of soldiers you have, and we want to stop them from attacking your thyroid on a day-to-day basis, because if your thyroid's getting beaten up and attacked every single day, it's not going to work well, is it? Like nothing, no organ, no gland, no person would work well if they get beat up every day. So yeah, we want to reduce that. We want to keep those soldiers in their barracks. We want them to chill out and not go start a war.
Yeah, we want them to fight the real enemy.
Yeah, exactly. Go kill cancer cells. Quit killing my thyroid, right?
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being really generous with your time and your knowledge today. So, for everyone watching, you can find Dr. Amie and her book, or you can book a call with her at dramie.com. There's a QR code right there if you're watching on YouTube. Please grab her book, Thyroid Fix. I'm going to get a couple of copies. I'm going to give it to my friends here in Alaska. And you can find wherever books are sold. And I'll make sure the links are also easy to find in the show notes. So if today helped you feel a little bit more seen, do me a favor, subscribe, share this with a friend who's been told that, hey, you're fine, but they know deep inside that something is off. So take care of the body that God gave you. It is worth understanding, and I will see you the next time the Blue Veil Wellness Show. Just okay. All right, there we go. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.